Hi. So for my interview, I talked with my grandma, who is 84 years old, and she is part of what's considered the silent generation. It's kind of one of the smallest generations that there really is. And to start, we kind of discussed her childhood growing up, which was very different than what mine looked like. She grew up on like a military housing situation. Her dad was in the military, and her mom was able to kind of pull some strings with some family friends and get them into government housing for families of anybody that was in the military. So she said that it was a like decently big neighborhood kind of development area, but the houses were really small. They were 2-bedroom houses, and they had 4 kids. There was 4 of them. So she said they actually grew up really poor. And then her dad was actually he left the military due to some medical issues. And when he came home, her parents slept on the couch because there wasn't enough bedroom space for them to have their own room. And I kind of knew that she didn't have necessarily the best childhood, but I guess I didn't know that they lived in military housing, so I found that to be kind of interesting about her. Like I said, there was 4 of them, and she's the oldest. She had I don't want to say boring childhood per se, but just not what childhood is like today. She said that they went to school because they had to. It wasn't really something like you wanted to go to school or they enjoyed going to school. It was just what you did. And it was super common for them at 16 to leave school and start working. And so that's what she did. When she was 16 years old, she got her first job and kind of started financially supporting herself at that age. Her father had passed away from a heart attack when he was young. He was only 36 when he died. And so it was just her mom and the kids. And she said that her mom really struggled trying to make ends meet for them. So she felt like it was her responsibility to start work. And so she did. And then when she was 19, she moved from New Jersey to Minnesota to be with my grandpa. She had met him, and they got married and moved out here. And so for the first few years, she worked a typical kind of career job where she actually made pretty decent money and was able to help support them starting up. They were able to buy land and start building a house and all of those things. They really wanted kids, and they knew that was something that they were hoping for the future. And so when she was 22, she had their first son. And after that, they had 6 kids. And so she left her career and was a stay-at-home mom because that's what they did back then. It was pretty much a social norm that once you had kids and got married and, you know, did all of the things that you were supposed to do, that you stayed home. The woman stayed home. And she said on their street in their neighborhood, all of the wives stayed home and they took care of the kids. And she said typically most days they would just open the door and the kids would go out and they'd play all day, and the wives would sit on the front steps and they would smoke because back then smoking, they didn't know all of the health issues that came with it. So they all smoked and they'd sit around and gossiping and chit-chatting and waiting for their husbands to come home. And that was pretty much their normal day today. And that's what life looked like back then. And then once the kids kind of kept getting older, she did dabble in a few things. I believe she worked at a bank for a bit, and she did also help out some friends who did daycare. So she had some little like odds and ends jobs, but for the most part, her role in life was to be a mom, and she loved it. That was what she felt that she was called to do. And that's kind of where one of our biggest differences in life is. Like I said, she had her first child when she was 22. I'm 28, and I have no interest in having kids at any point. I just don't feel called to be a mom like she did. And so that's where one of our big differences is. But in our world today, that's not as uncommon anymore. You know, there's a lot of women who don't have kids. But back then, that really wasn't heard of. I mean, yes, there were women doing it, obviously, but for the most part, your standard woman had a family. She has always been religious. It really didn't take a huge role in her life until she was 12 years old. They moved to a new area and she met some friends who were very involved in the church, and that's where she got really involved. She has since then been a very devoted Catholic. She has always gone to church. Her and my grandpa have always been big into the church and the community involved with that. And she said back when they first moved to the area in Minnesota that they live, everybody went to one church. Everybody fit in one church. You knew everybody at your church. And she said now when they go, she said there's like 6 or 7 different churches in their town, and their church houses 1,500 people. And she said they hardly know anyone. So that's one thing that has significantly changed over her life, is how many more people there are. I mean, really, the world has just kind of gotten so much bigger than what they used to have. Another thing that she pointed out that I found kind of interesting, or just a perspective that I guess I've never really looked at, was how fast-paced our life has become, and that just wasn't a typical normal thing back in their day. So she said, when she was a child, they went to school because they had to, and then they went home. There wasn't sports and clubs and organizations and things. That just wasn't a thing back then. And so she said, looking at how busy everybody is now and how fast-paced life is just such a stark difference from the way that she grew up and even the way that she raised her kids. She said that just really wasn't a huge thing. She said, you got together with your friends outside of school. Obviously, you played, sports, but you didn't play for a school sport. You would meet up at the basketball court and you guys would play basketball together, or, you would play kickball in the street or what have you, but you weren't playing things like that. So she said there was no, your parents got home and rushed you off to activities and you came home and you ate dinner and you did your homework and you had to get up and do it all again. And she said there wasn't that. There was just a lot more downtime, which I guess I never really stopped to think about how much busier life has gotten in today's world. Another difference for us definitely is that religion piece. Like I said, she is a very devoted Catholic, and that's not something that I personally practice. I grew up in Catholic churches and going to Sunday school, but as I've gotten older, I've just kind of branched off from that, and I just don't really do organized religion anymore. She, like I said, her biggest role in life was just being a mom, and I knew that being a caretaker was her role, but one of the things that I guess I never really stopped and asked her was if that's what she wanted for life, and it really was. She wanted to be a mom. She did not want to be a career woman. She did not want to be she just wanted to be a mom. And she said that was really common even in their workplaces. Like before she had kids, she said that was all of their goals in life. The women wanted to be moms. They were hoping to get to stay at home with their kids. And so that was just really the culture back then. And I think that culture just shaped her entire life. And because there wasn't a ton of different avenues to take, that was the one that she was on. And luckily for her, she enjoyed that and that's what she wanted, but that wasn't necessarily the case for everyone. And so it was a really interesting conversation just to hear her perspective about how the world has changed. And yeah,